right, so we're just going to put this here, stick that there, and then press delete. All right, there we are. And then now start new project, give it a name. Awesome. All right, well, video complete. That was easy. On a more serious note, do you feel yourself always needing to restart your project, maybe after even working on it for a couple of years? I mean, I feel like just on YouTube alone, I see a lot of, I've restarted my dream game for the X time or after X so many months. And I mean, I'm even guilty of this myself. So that's kind of what I hope to look at in this video. Why do we feel the need to self-sabotage? And I honestly think the answer will surprise you. I want to look specifically at what about our projects do we get so frustrated with that in our minds, it's easier to start a brand new project than it is to keep moving forward. To do this, I want to look at 4 reasons based on my own personal experience of why I've self-sabotaged in the past. Starting with a strong underestimate of my own skills in comparison to what I'm trying to achieve, a loss of vision, roadblocks, and not paying attention to myself or the things around me. And so you now might be thinking, wait, none of those have anything in common to do with each other. There's actually one common thread that's pulling all of them together, and that thread is your own personal comfort. And if we tie these back to the 4 things that I mentioned earlier, when you have an underestimate of your own skill in comparison to what you're trying to achieve, you live in this pyramid of learning, which is called unconscious incompetence. You think that you are a lot better or have a lot more skill in something than what you actually do. And so when you're presented with the facts, you either tend to ignore it or you tend to do whatever it takes to try and fix that incompetence, except for dealing with the one thing that would actually fix it, which is acknowledgement of where you are at in your own mind and your own skill. And that's something that takes an extremely long time to develop, especially if you're completely new to areas of game development themselves. And because we live in a society where everything is starting to become more instant, and it's a lot easier and faster to get the things that we want or need, we feel like with game dev that there should be a similar expectation, when in fact the reality is that it just might take a lot longer. I mean, I can remember a conversation that I've had in the past where I wanted to believe that after 3 months of developing a project that I would get to see some kind of return on it, financially speaking. And I'm not trying to bash information or knowledge that seems to claim that you can create a game studio within X amount of time. But what I am saying is that when you go into it expecting those expectations, and when they don't happen, you start to get stressed, you start to feel uncomfortable, and that can lead to disaster and burnout. The reality is, some people might be able to do that in just a few months, but it's also okay if you don't make it within that time frame. Game development isn't a race, and it's not about the end destination. It's about the journey, getting there, and what you're going to do throughout your entire career as a game developer. Next, that's why I feel like it's so awkward when we lose our vision. You know, what's the end goal of the thing that we actually set out to achieve? And while I think there can be some unhealthy expectations there too, it is important to keep the finished project in mind as you're working through it, as it serves as sort of a roadmap for you to be able to guide yourself on as you keep working on certain mechanics, as you keep improving different parts of the game. And so when we lose that vision, we no longer have a reason for why we're doing the things that we're doing. Instead, everything just becomes an obstacle, and when you finish one system or one mechanic, it no longer feels enjoyable and you don't feel the success from it because it just feels like one more piece of the puzzle instead of a part of a much grander vision. And then if we do end up working on a mechanic and we end up getting stuck, then it just creates a roadblock. And when we have that roadblock, you can only push against it so much before you start to begin to feel tired, like you have no control over your own project. And that can create anxiety and stress, which leads to uncomfort. When the reality is, even if you are stuck on that one thing, I'm sure there are many other aspects of your project that could use your attention. And so not all of your energy has to be spent trying to beat your head against one wall, trying to figure out one major thing in your game. Instead, you should be focusing on doing things like asking questions and trying to get help through Discord or on certain forums, and then while waiting for a response, focusing on something else, so that way later you can come back to the problem with a fresh set of eyes, feeling regenerated and renewed from your time away from it. And finally, not paying enough attention to yourself or your environment can be a recipe for disaster. With all the other things that I've mentioned that can cause stress and cause you to start feeling uncomfortable with yourself and the progress that you're making in your own project, having outside stress compound on top of that can make everything spiral out of control suddenly. A good example of this is me before making this YouTube video. I've been running so behind my projected project plan that the stress from being that far behind kept compounding on top of things like in my job not going as well as I would hope, and some personal matters going on back home. And so when you look at all three of those stressors pushing against each other at the same time, and so it's no wonder that this past week especially, I found myself wanting to spend less time working on things and more time just trying to relax and recover from my own personal burnout. And before we discuss how you can deal with your own discomfort so you can start feeling more motivated, I did want to go ahead and mention the vision for my own game, the Steps of Divynia, which is a Metroidvania that features Souls-like combat that intertwines and actually impacts the story's theme, courage, and never giving up on one's dreams, and how both of those games' narratives being told. And so if that sounds like something you might be interested in, please consider giving the game a wish list. Thank you. And now let's try and tackle why you might be feeling some discomfort and what you can try and do today to start feeling more comfortable when it comes to your own project and turn them into something that we can actually work with, something like motivation, so we can keep working on our project. Well, I think first things first is to realize that not all forms of self-sabotage are bad. And what I mean is, sometimes it might be okay for you to start a brand new project if something isn't working out in your old project, or if you're no longer finding joy in something that you were previously working on. Which, if that's the case, then my only recommendation is not to delete your project, but instead put it somewhere where it can be pulled from later in case something changes. Next, find the real reason for your discomfort. For example, if you struggle with perfection, then maybe ask yourself, do I struggle because I want to impress people? Is it because that I feel lonely and unwanted? Which, in that case, maybe you need to spend a little bit more time socializing with other people around you, or maybe joining a random Discord and seeing if you can't make some new friends. Or maybe it comes from a place of not feeling accomplished with anything in your life, in which case you need to figure out where that inadequacy comes from and what you can do today to start taking steps toward fulfilling that desire that has gone unnoticed thus far. And while trying to cover all aspects of where your discomfort might be coming from is outside of the scope for what I want to do in this video, I will leave resources below to information that I've found on the subject in case you need a little bit more. And with that, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing for more videos where I talk on more subjects like this throughout my game dev journey. Thank you so much for watching this video and sticking with me this far. Please be sure to let me know in the comments what you think about comfort and maybe perhaps why you've self-sabotaged yourself in your own projects in the past. And if you're still struggling to keep motivated or to work on your own game project, then I would suggest watching this video that goes more into the roots of why you feel lazy and why you're actually not. I hope to see you there, and until next time, take care.